This is a CBC podcast.
For weeks, the Green Party has been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Just a few days ago, leader Annamie Paul was close to facing a leadership vote. But yesterday, the party announced the non-confidence motions will no longer be considered during the current federal council's term. Now, with a potential election on the horizon, the party is trying to move past their internal challenges. For more on this week's federal politics, we're joined by Heather Scoffield. She's the Ottawa Bureau Chief and economics columnist for the Toronto Star. Heather, good morning.
Good morning.
The Green Party decided not to move ahead with its non-confidence vote against leader Annamie Paul. What do you know about why this change of course?
So we don't officially know the reason Annamie Paul did not want to talk about that very much yesterday, but there's been a lot of, a lot of reporting about the tension between her and the governing council in the past. So we do know that there's been a massive conflict within that party with the governing council, curtailing the amount of money that could go into Annamie Paul's office as a leader, and even dating back to, her by-election campaign last fall when she was not able to get the funding that she needed she wanted to launch a full-fledged campaign. And it kind of went from bad to worse when Jenica Atwin, one of the three MPs that was elected in the last election, crossed the floor to the Liberals, and then, finger-pointing came out in the public to accuse Annamie Paul of not managing things properly, and then Annamie Paul fighting back, talking about racism and sexism and dysfunction within the party, and clearly there's a huge battle. So she has, I think, talked about legal action. She's talked about internal rules to rein in the council behind the scenes, and so that may have encouraged them to stand down on their non-confidence vote. It was supposed to happen today. But public perception undoubtedly has played a role. I mean, they've had weeks of negative coverage here, lots of leaks and accusations, and it's just been terrible for any party right before an election campaign, but especially a tiny party with a brand new leader.
And yesterday, Annamie Paul spoke to the media. Ultimately, what was her message?
So she was trying to say, now that we're not going to have a non-confidence vote, she was trying to say, okay, I'm still standing. Let's move on here and get into an election campaign as a united party with a strong message. But, just the fact that she was out there having this news conference was a signal to her own party and to her detractors that she's still standing. And she put out some pretty raw feelings about how the party's governing council has treated her, complaining about her inability to really function as a leader and how personally bruising it has been and injurious to her as trying to, lead a party while she's being undermined within. She said she thought about quitting numerous times but didn't want to become yet another good person who was squeezed out of public life because of negative forces.
So how do you think the party will be able to move forward from this?
That will be very hard. The election campaign feels soon. There's a lot of electioneering in the air right now, a lot of chatter about an election call coming in August for a vote in September. And so if that actually turns out to be the case, the Green Party doesn't have a lot of time here to regain their stature in the eyes of the public. They've got 51 candidates named out of 338. Traditionally, they like to have candidates in every riding to show that they're a national party. How do they get from 51 to 338 at a time when they've got so much internal turmoil? It's striking where voters traditionally, they look to the Greens for a strong stance on the environment, but that's not really what they're talking about these days. They are, they've been trying to talk about everything else so that they show that they're a full-fledged party, not just a one-issue party. But on top of that, they've got all this dysfunction and open questions about the party leadership. So how do you, at a time when, forest fires are in our faces, there's smoke everywhere, people are talking about the environment, and clearly it will be an issue in the next campaign, and yet the Green Party's not in a situation where it can capitalize on that.
Very interesting. One we'll certainly be watching here in northern BC. I want to talk about another of the big stories out of Ottawa, and that's the plans that were announced yesterday to ease border restrictions. What's at stake politically for the Liberals on this file?
Well, they are trying really hard to take a cautious approach here to show that, they're not moving too. They don't want to move too fast, but they do want to give the business community and just regular people, really, who want to see their friends and family in the United States or elsewhere, to try to give them a plan about when things will open up. So yesterday they said on August 9th, Americans will be able to travel here as long as they're fully vaccinated and a few other conditions. And then September 7th, that applies to the rest of the world as well, except for India. So India, they are ready to make exceptions if COVID's still a problem. So there was a huge pressure from business groups to have this plan rolled out, from the tourism industry and travel accommodation. But the provinces have been active on this file too. So the premiers have not been all on the same page here. Some of them really wanted strict controls left in place. Others wanted a quicker reopening. But I think we got to a place as a country where, vaccination levels are high, contagion is low, and there was a certain amount of comfort of like, okay, we can finally move here as long as we move very, very carefully. And so I think one of the criticisms that the Liberals are facing right now, though, is that they've been too vague. They've left themselves a lot of space to pull it back if COVID pops up here or there. We don't know exactly under what conditions they will pull it back, and they just kind of said vaguely, we're looking at a few things. They're looking at hospitalization, at contagion, at what's happening in other countries. So they've left themselves a lot of space to reverse themselves if they have to.
We'll be watching that story as well. Heather, thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Have a good day.
You as well. Heather Schofield is the Ottawa Bureau Chief and Economics columnist for the Toronto Star.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.